Harrison Gray's study was a shrine to history. Shelves lined with aged tomes, glass cases housing fragile manuscripts, and walls adorned with maps and relics from a dozen civilizations. The air was rich with the scent of parchment and wood polish, a fitting ambience for a man whose life was devoted to uncovering the truths of the past. Harrison was, above all, a skeptic. He prided himself on his ability to rationalize what others might call superstition. Ghost stories, cursed artifacts, and ancient spells were nothing more than exaggerated folklore to him, misunderstood history cloaked in mystery. So when a colleague sent him a curious relic, a small, jagged idol carved from obsidian and etched with strange symbols, Harrison felt nothing but excitement. The package arrived late one afternoon, wrapped meticulously and accompanied by a note. Harrison found this in a private estate auction in Eastern Europe. No records of its origin, but the locals were terrified of it, claimed it brought death to its owners. Thought you'd find it interesting. Let me know what you uncover. The idol was cold to the touch, unnaturally so, as though it had been pulled from deep within the earth moments before. The carvings were intricate, depicting twisted figures that seemed to writhe and shift under the light. Despite its unsettling appearance, Harrison was enthralled. He spent the evening researching, combing through texts and archives, but the artifact eluded identification. It wasn't tied to any culture he could pinpoint, not Mayan, not Mesopotamian, not even something more obscure. Frustrated but intrigued, he placed the idol on his desk and went to bed. The first sign something was wrong came that night. Harrison woke abruptly to the sound of whispers, faint and indistinct. He sat up, his room bathed in moonlight, and listened. The whispers grew louder, filling the air with a language he couldn't understand. He turned on the light, heart pounding, but the sound vanished instantly. Dismissing it as a vivid dream, he returned to bed. But the whispers continued the next night, and the night after. Strange occurrences began to mount. Objects in his study shifted positions when he wasn't looking. Shadows moved in ways they shouldn't, stretching unnaturally across the room. Harrison's usually sharp mind became clouded. He found himself forgetting things, losing track of time. One morning he woke to find the idol had moved from his desk to the floor across the room. A deep scratch marred the wood beneath it, as though it had been dragged by unseen hands. Still, he clung to his skepticism. There's an explanation for this, he muttered to himself, though the growing unease in his chest said otherwise. Desperate for answers, Harrison turned to the note from Frank and traced the artifact's origins to a small village in the Carpathian Mountains. The locals, he learned, called the idol the Hunger. They claimed it was created by a long-forgotten cult that worshipped a dark entity, binding its essence into the relic. The curse, they said, drew energy from those who possessed it, driving them mad before consuming their souls entirely. Harrison scoffed at the idea of soul consumption, but couldn't ignore the historical implications of the story. The cult's existence, though obscure, was plausible, and the artifact's craftsmanship was undeniable. He decided to dig deeper. Harrison's research led him to an ancient manuscript housed in a private collection. It detailed a ritual performed by the cult, a way to bind the artifact's power and prevent it from spreading destruction. The process was complex and dangerous, requiring the person performing it to serve as a vessel for the curse's energy. It would sever the artifact's connection to its victims, but would forever tie the vessel's life force to the relic. Despite his skepticism, Harrison couldn't deny the artifact's effects on him. He resolved to perform the ritual, not because he believed in curses, but because he was certain that unraveling the ritual's origins would reveal the historical truth behind the artifact's mystique. The ritual took place in his study. Harrison followed the manuscript's instructions meticulously, carving symbols into the floor and reciting the ancient incantations. As he spoke, the air in the room thickened, vibrating with a palpable energy. The whispers he had heard at night returned, growing louder and more frenzied. Then the room went black. When Harrison awoke, the artifact lay cold and inert before him. But he was not the same. His mind was invaded by memories that weren't his own. Visions of the cult's rituals, the horrors they unleashed, and the desperate attempts of those who had tried to destroy the artifact before him. He could feel the artifact's power coursing through him, a dark presence that whispered constantly at the edges of his consciousness. The curse had been contained, but Harrison's life was no longer his own. He was tethered to the artifact, its guardian now. Over the following weeks, Harrison withdrew from his old life. He donated his collection to museums, closed his study, and disappeared without a word to his colleagues. His passion for history was now overshadowed by a grim understanding of its dangers. He joined a secluded monastery in the mountains, devoting his life to the study of cursed artifacts. The monks welcomed him, their order dedicated to safeguarding the world from such relics. There, he found a new purpose, protecting humanity from the forces that lurked just beyond comprehension. Years passed, and Harrison grew older, his once sharp features weathered by solitude and responsibility. The artifact remained locked away in the monastery's vault, its power dormant but ever present. Harrison's skepticism had been shattered, replaced by a deep respect for the unseen forces of the world. He spent his days studying ancient texts, documenting the relics the Order had collected, and training younger monks to carry on the mission. Though his life was one of isolation, he found solace in knowing he had saved others from the horrors he had endured. But at night, as he sat alone in his chamber, the whispers sometimes returned, faint and distant, reminding him that the darkness he guarded was never truly gone. The darkness Harrison faced was not a tangible thing he could fight or banish. It was a presence, a shadow clinging to his soul, silent yet ever watchful. It crept into his thoughts unbidden, warping his dreams and filling his waking moments with an undercurrent of dread. Though the ritual had bound the artifact's curse, its essence had seeped into him, leaving him forever tethered to its malevolent energy. In the quiet halls of the monastery, Harrison carried the weight of the artifact's history. He spent countless hours in the archive chambers, poring over ancient texts and fragmented manuscripts, searching for ways to better understand the power he now harbored. Every so often, he would feel the cold tendrils of the relic's influence stir within him, as if testing its limits. These moments left him breathless, his body trembling under the strain of keeping it contained. The relic itself was kept locked in a vault deep beneath the monastery, encased in layers of sacred barriers meant to suppress its influence. Yet, Harrison could always feel its presence, as though it called to him across the stone walls. At night, when the monastery was silent, the whispers would return. They were softer now, fragmented murmurs of the language he had heard during the ritual. But even in their gentleness, they were unnerving, a constant reminder that the artifact was not truly dormant. Harrison often wondered about the nature of the darkness within the relic. Was it merely a manifestation of human fear and malice, amplified over centuries by belief and bloodshed? Or was it something far older, a primal force beyond human understanding? He had seen glimpses of its origins in the visions that invaded his mind, rituals performed by desperate men and women, their faces twisted in ecstasy and terror as they called forth something they could not control. These visions haunted him, surfacing without warning and leaving him shaken. He would see flashes of the cult's rituals, shadows writhing in firelight, their voices chanting in unison as the relic pulsed with a sickly glow. He would feel their elation turn to horror as the power they had summoned turned on them, consuming their bodies and tethering their spirits to the idol forever. Harrison feared that same fate. Though he had bound the artifact's curse, he knew it was a fragile piece. The relic's whispers hinted at a deeper hunger, a desire for freedom that would one day test his resolve. The monks who trained alongside him could sense the burden he carried, but rarely spoke of it, respecting his quiet suffering. Despite the darkness, Harrison found purpose in his solitude. The relic had taught him that some truths of history were better left buried, some artifacts better left forgotten. He dedicated himself to guarding not just the obsidian idol, but other relics the Order had retrieved, objects steeped in blood and misery, each with its own dark tale. The vault beneath the monastery grew over the years, a silent repository of humanity's most dangerous creations. The relic, however, remained unique. Unlike the others, it was tied to Harrison's very existence. It responded to his emotions, its power waxing and waning with his state of mind. On nights when his resolve wavered, the whispers would grow louder, the air in his chamber thick with an oppressive energy. He would wake drenched in sweat, clutching the amulet of protection the monks had crafted for him, and spend hours in prayer or meditation to regain control. Yet there were times when the relic's influence felt almost compassionate. On rare occasions, he would hear a voice in the whispers, not the guttural tones of the curse, but a soft, mournful presence. It was as though some part of the artifact's victims lingered within it, trapped and seeking release. Harrison wondered if his guardianship wasn't just about containing the relic's power, but also about offering solace to those bound by it. Over time, Harrison came to accept that the relic would always be a part of his life. It was a constant reminder of the dangers of unchecked curiosity, of the cost of delving too deeply into the unknown. He no longer sought to rid himself of it, understanding that his role was not to escape the curse, but to bear it so others would not have to. The monks often found him sitting outside the vault, his head bowed in silent contemplation. He would spend hours there, his fingers tracing the intricate carvings on the vault's entrance, as if communing with the relic beyond. Though his face grew lined with age and his body frailer, there was a quiet strength in his eyes, a determination born of sacrifice. Harrison knew he would never again live a normal life, but he no longer mourned the loss. He had made peace with his solitude, finding fulfillment in the knowledge that his suffering protected the world from forces it could not comprehend. Yet, even in his moments of peace, the whispers remained, a subtle reminder that the darkness he faced was not gone, only contained, waiting patiently for its next chance to be unleashed.